So I think it's um, we're about 2:05. So I think we'll begin. Let other people just come in, and Ellen, you can and Meg can sort of do what you need to do um, as you let people in. Um, so it's good to see you all, and I've just zoomed through the four platforms of screens of everyone, and you're all on there. It's 96 of us right now, and probably will, once we get over 100, we'll go on to a fifth platform. And to open in prayer, one of the prayers that has been really traditional and a well-known prayer that has been with me over these this last week, actually, um, particularly with one phrase in there that I'll come to in a minute, that I'd like to offer. I think all of us are thinking about uh, uh, what it is to be church in a time like this. We talk about virtual church. We ask the question about when are we going to go back to church? Some people are asking as though we're not the church, as members, as baptized members, but we're talking about the physical building and all the traditions and rituals that go along with that. Um, so one of the prayer is from ordination for the bishop, ordination for deacon, priest, and in other parts of the prayer book. So let us pray. O God of unchangeable power and eternal light, look favorably on your whole church, that wonderful and sacred mystery, and by the effectual working of your providence, carry out in tranquility the plan of salvation, that the whole world see and know that things which are cast down are being raised up, and things which had grown old are being made new, and that all things are being brought to their perfection by him through whom all things were made, your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. I was struck particularly by the phrase, in tranquility, carry out in tranquility the plan of your salvation. Often, I think from our perspective, it's far from tranquility, it's far from calmness. But maybe as that prayer is trying to capture from God's point of view, even in the midst of what we're experiencing today in the world and how it is impacting us in terms of our regular habits and ways, we have to hold to the reality that God is nevertheless working out in tranquility, with a steady hand, with a calm heart, the plan of salvation. And we may be worried about what kind of church, who's going to come back once we all can come back in a way that we're used to, if ever that's true. What will be left standing? Um, but then we have to recognize that the church is God's sacred mystery. It's God's sacred mystery of which we are part and privileged to be part. Even when we're being asked to do strange things like wear masks and distance and come in smaller groups and go online and so on and so forth. The Apostle Paul loved to sort of greet everybody with the words grace and peace. He said, grace and peace in the Lord Jesus Christ. Grace, that awareness of divine love that forgives and renews and sustains and reconciles, which we receive undeservedly from God, not because of our works or our goodness or our right decisions, but because God loves us. And so that grace is offered to us in Jesus Christ, and peace, the settled state, faith in the one who is able to keep all that we have committed to him until that day. Whatever that day is, that day of our death, that day of our passing through what we're passing through right now. But grace and peace are offered to us as offering assurance that we are God's children and therefore under God's care through every situation including death itself and all these stages that we have to experience in between before that day comes. So I greet you with the grace and the peace that's in our Lord Jesus Christ, grateful and admiring the way that you are keeping faithful and finding ways to be faithful, not only to preserving a community of faith and a community of social action, but also to continue to share the faith that you have in Jesus Christ with your neighbors, those who might come on to your online services, whom you don't know, that may be in other parts of the world, other parts of the country, and your willingness to recognize that and find ways to, how do we in this time, at this point, reach out and continue the work, that wonderful plan of salvation that God, through us, even in our anxiety and our fear and all of the other things, our frustration, nevertheless, God works out in tranquility, all things becoming new and things cast down being lifted up. And that's what we're part of. That's who we are. So over these past few months, as we become virtual in so much of our worship and our gatherings, it is admirable to know and learn of the ways in which you have adapted, persevered, had patience, been willing to accept rules and regulations that have gone right against the grain of who you are as a person of independence and of liberty, recognizing that we are all part of a system in which we seek to love one another, and in that loving sometimes having to do things to protect each other that go against the grain of who we very much are. The incredible rise of of evening prayer, morning prayer, Compline that is offered online. Someone said to me recently, you know, we weren't doing that before March 16th or whenever it was, we all closed down. We weren't doing that. And yet we've created it. And Bible studies and other kinds of ways of keeping in touch with each other and preserving the life of the church, which is our life together in Jesus Christ. Something completely new. And I think there's emerging a kind of different sense of reflecting our own faith root, a different perspective. We've done 6 months of being church hunkering down, waiting for a cloud to pass, and it's not passed. In some ways in Iowa, we're doing alpine walks. We've gone beyond the woods, beyond the forest, beyond the low hills. We're in the Alps and we're kind of going up one summit, coming back down, and only to find another summit. And we find the higher and higher summits, it seems, even as we are going along. And yes, some of you have been able to return to church in that building and in that worship, and maybe not with the singing, and maybe with some distancing and with masks and priests without acolytes and all of those things, and Eucharist only in one kind, and so on. And I pray if you're able to do that, that you do pray for those of us who can't, whether we're not able because of the circumstances, where our position is with the data for our area, or because and those who can't come because it just isn't wise for them to venture out in a place like this. This makes it different for us. It's going to be a different convention, and I think this idea of a joint chapter meeting is just wisdom. Really grateful to the staff for coming up with it, to get us all together. It gives us a kind of little preview of what convention's going to be like and how we can do convention, and gives us an opportunity to practice. And we're going to practice some of that, I think, today. So you will see resolutions and even budget discussions are going to be part of run-ups towards convention, as we help articulate our thoughts and hopefully focus our thoughts for a more streamlined conversation in convention itself. As I look at us as a church, as a diocese, I know there are three things that really are very uppermost that I see as three major threads. One is that this COVID-19 and how we work through that. Second is the call to social justice, racial justice that has come since May 25th. Or really focused itself since May 25th. And the prospect of, can this possibly be a Berlin Wall moment? Can this be a moment when something that seemed to be stuck forever can actually change? And can we wake up to help that happen? And I would not want to see the diocese lose its opportunity to be part of that moment. And so I think the work being done by the Beloved Community Initiative and the Dismantling Racism courses and all of that that's being presented to us is just, I think it's God's time for that. I'm so grateful for Suzanne and for Meg and the boards the advisory boards that have formed themselves for this. That's all part of what we're here, part of us as we gather here today. And the third thing, of course, is something that I'm aware of more than maybe you may be aware of. We're all aware of in our different ways. And that is that, yeah, you're in a process of a diocese of moving towards a new time. Gathering the things that are old and the things that are new, and praying in a discernful way for the way that God will guide you in years to come under the leadership of a new bishop. So there are three things going on pretty heavy duty right now in the diocese, and not too much room for much else to go. So this is my first chance I've had to talk to you all, and I'm grateful for that. But you have other business in hand during this joint chapter meeting. What I wanted to do right now is just hand over to Patrick Hansen, ask him to talk to us a little bit about what goes on behind the decisions that are made by a task force on regathering, and receiving your plans, and then deciding whether we feel the situation is good to move forward into regathering in person and those kind of things. And so Patrick is really the one who has offered a great deal to us about how to sort of understand the circumstances around us in terms of the data. And so I'd like now him to just talk to us a little bit and to introduce him to you all. So Patrick, I know you're on there, I saw you. Page 1 in my page.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay? Yes, I'm seeing heads nod. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Bishop Alan Scarf, and thank you, Meg, and the other members of the diocesan staff and everyone who's part of this session today. Thank you for having me. Thank you also for the work that you all have been doing as part of this regathering process. So I'll talk a little bit about the task force and the work that we've been doing. But truly that work is spread all across Iowa as you all contemplate and articulate what it is to regather for your parishes and your congregations, and share that with us as a way for us to bring those plans together, review them, give feedback, and also share what we learn across the state so that everyone is benefiting from that process. I should say just a little bit about myself. So I'm Patrick Hansen. My background is fairly interesting. I won't go into all the details, but I'm trained as an engineer, have worked in public health, and also have training in public administration. So I bring a unique perspective to all this. As the bishop mentioned, I'm very much someone who follows the numbers, and I do that methodically. I'm doing that in the context of COVID-19, and I'm doing that for the diocese. But I'm not doing it just for the diocese either. I am assisting with task forces at Grinnell College, Center College, and Macalester College as well. And all of that comes together in a variety of ways here as I'm able to share those perspectives from various different institutions that are struggling with what does it mean to bring students or congregations or groups of people together in this moment, in this pandemic. So I feel very fortunate to be able to be involved in all of that and to bring that perspective to the church here. I'm a member of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Grinnell, where my wife is on faculty at Grinnell College. And so that's my direct tie-in to Grinnell College. A little bit about the work of the task force. As you all very well likely know, the task force produced very quickly in the course of things the Abounding in Hope plan for regathering. And I imagine most of you have taken a close look at that. Some of you are probably involved in task forces or local groups for your parishes to put those guidelines into practice for your local churches. And putting that into practice is a practice of care for our communities. It is a practice of expressing God's love in the world in the midst of difficult times. And I know it's not easy. I've been involved in doing that for St. Paul's here in Grinnell as well. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of thought. It is done with the intent of caring for those who are most vulnerable, not just within our church walls, and certainly as a demographic, as we look at the church and look at generally the age of parishioners, that is a concern for us as a church. It's also done with care for the most vulnerable within our broader communities, and recognizing that the problem of public health and the problem of a pandemic like we're in right now is not just an individual problem, it's a societal problem. It's a challenge of establishing practices and behaviors that care for each other in a way that prevent the spread of the virus. And so as Bishop Allen mentioned, we're doing things that cut against the grain, that are not necessarily part of who we might typically think of ourselves being. Wearing masks, keeping physical distances, not being affectionate in the ways that we might like or prefer. One big change, and again, for those of you who have been watching this process from the beginning, is now thinking about regathering and thinking about doing that outdoors as much as possible. And that's a big change in the guidance for regathering that we just released in the last week or so. And it's something I want to really encourage everyone to think about and embrace. Like everything in this process, regathering outdoors isn't easy either. We are used to meeting physically in person, indoors, in our church, with an organ or a piano, with that physical space and the altar and everything that gives us that comfort of what we're used to. And so worshiping outdoors or holding other kinds of events or gatherings outdoors, I mean, we've done it at St. Paul's in Grinnell. You get trucks going by on Highway 6, and you get the train going by behind the church in the middle of the reading and the lesson for the day. It's a reminder, in some ways it's a beautiful reminder that we are in the world. We are not apart from the world. And so doing this regathering in that outdoor space can be a beautiful thing, but it also cuts against the grain. It's not what we're used to. But why? Why would we emphasize regathering outdoors? And why would we make that part of what we're doing? And why would that be so important? That's because what the science and the scientists and the research have shown us about this virus is that the most dangerous thing you can do is to gather a group of people indoors for an extended period of time where the air is recirculated, where that space is shared, where you might be singing, although we're not allowing that right now, and where the virus, especially if it's air conditioned, is just ripe for spreading and creating more of the problem, more illness, and potentially worse than that. That is what the research shows us. And the research also shows us that outdoors is where you can be most safe right now. There's a lot we don't know about the virus, about the pandemic, about the way it spreads. But the little that we do know, or what we do know, suggests that being outdoors while still using masks and keeping distance, but being outdoors where the wind can blow through, where it might be a little bit hotter and where the sun is shining down on things, that is the safest context in which a group of individuals can come together and worship. And so it is hard, but it is a way to be physically together and worship together now as we have amended the regathering guidance across all phases. So Bishop Allen mentioned we're following the metrics. We have specific sort of rubric, a framework for, are you in phase 1, which is the most stringent? Are you in phase 2? Are you in phase 3? And you can apply to move from phase 1 to phase 2, and we'll review your plan and all those things. That all is still in place. But as we seek to gather in tranquility and have some peace of mind and stability and not have to think too much about all the constraints that we're facing, the way that we can do that with the greatest peace of mind is to gather outdoors. And so we are now allowing, the task force is allowing, and the bishop has approved for regathering to happen across all phases outdoors. And that's really important. There's still requirements about masking, about keeping physical distance, still need to be mindful about how we're doing the elements and communion, still need to refrain from singing and do those things. But across each of those phases, 1, 2, and 3, there is now guidance about how to do all of this outdoors and to do that in a way that is safe and is, again, being mindful and protective of and caring for the most vulnerable among us. So hopefully I think that covers what I believe, Bishop Allen, you wanted me to focus on today. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to address, or if there's questions that individuals have, I'll stay on and I can maybe answer some things via chat, or Bishop Allen, if there's anything else that you want to make sure we highlight, I'm happy to do that now.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm going to hand over to Ellen to guide us through the rest of the agenda. Thanks very much, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. Just really quickly, our agenda today as a whole group, all of us together, includes looking at convention plans, and John has some information on registration and on nominations and resolutions. Meg will offer us a look at the the way we're going to be doing convention. So a little update there for you so you can get more comfortable with it. We also then, Ann Wagner will offer some information on the budget. If I'm correct, I think in each of your breakout rooms, there will be a person from Ways and Means to help with that discussion in a more detailed manner. We also have a report from Gilead and on some of the online trainings, and then from the Bishop Search Committee. So all of those will be moving through as a large group. Then we have time in breakout rooms, and I really would ask you to write your questions down either in the chat or on your own paper. And the breakout rooms are a time for you to talk about those with people in your chapter. Like I said, I think there's a Ways and Means person in each of the breakout rooms. So I know it's kind of stilted to just hear talking faces for a while, but you will get a chance to talk as we get into the breakout rooms. You can always put a message in the chat if there's something really, really important that you would like us to pay attention to. So I think that's it for the agenda. That's what we plan to talk about. And next on the, oh, I know too, I get to be timekeeper. So if I break in because somebody's going too long, please don't hate me. It's just to keep this moving along a little bit, okay? So,
all right. This year for Diocesan Convention, we are going to be using an app where you're going to find all of the materials for convention and all of the live streams of convention. So you won't have to keep track of different Zoom links and registration links and all that kind of stuff. So once you have registered, if you're a delegate, that's going to happen from your church. And if you are registering as an individual, you'll do that through the link on the website. On the Diocesan website, you'll see there's that a place to get the certification and registration forms for congregations and a place for congregations to pay for their delegates. There's a place for registration if you are attending as an individual. Guests, visitors, vendors, exhibitors, non-parochial and retired clergy would all use that registration link. As well as there are lots of other links on here that I'm sure John will talk about. Once you are registered and you've gotten the confirmation that you're registered, there'll also be a link to be able to download the app. There's also a link for you all on the convention page. The app is available on mobile devices. It's available on a desktop portal as well. So you don't have to have a mobile device. You can have it on more than one, though, if you'd like to watch the live stream on one and use a tablet to take notes or participate in the chat. But you will get all of the information that you need to be able to download the app in your confirmation email. Once you've downloaded the app or access the web version on a computer, you'll need to sign in and make an account. It is important that you use the same email that you use for registration when you make this account. You can upload a picture of yourself. You can change your profile a little bit to add some of your interests, anything that you would want other convention attendees to know about you. But once you've signed in, on the desktop version, this is what it would look like. This is the welcome screen when you arrive. Everything for the agenda can be found under the agenda tab. You'll notice that even though convention starts on October 24th, the agenda starts on the 17th. That's because on the Saturday the 17th, we'll have a practice session for you if you want to try out the connection to the app. We'll also be hosting a resolutions hearing and a budget hearing that day. You just click on the session for that day and time, and you'll see this window once the live stream is Zoom is running. That window will populate, and you'll have the opportunity to enter the Zoom. From that agenda, you can click out of it, and the video will continue. So you can navigate around the app, and the video will continue. If we go to the 24th, which is the day of convention, you'll see under plenary 1, I already have at least one document. But any of the documents that you might need for that session, you'll be able to find from within that agenda session. So the minutes are there right now. There'll be other things there. Resolutions will appear down there. You'll have the ability to chat during the plenary, excuse me. And you'll have all the controls that you have in Zoom will be available at the bottom of the screen. So you'll be able to raise hands like you can in Zoom, vote yes or no, all of those things that you're able to do in Zoom. So for delegates, there'll be 3 ways that delegates will be able to participate in voting, depending on what kind of vote is being taken. For a simple majority vote or procedural motions, the chairperson will ask for a show of hands, which you'll do by using that raise hands icon on the participants icon at the bottom of Zoom. Sometimes it's at the top. To approve or oppose things like the budget or resolutions, you'll get a poll. And if there's a poll that you're allowed to enter, it'll show up under polls for you. If we have to do votes that are by different orders, only the people in that order will get that vote. So we'll be able to easily count lay versus clergy votes. So connecting with others is also, you're able to connect with other attendees. You can send them direct messages, or you can participate in discussions. If there's not a topic that interests you there, you can start your own. If you want to connect with people who are doing ministry in small churches, start a discussion thread. If you want to talk about ways people are finding to worship in this time or minister in this time, you could start that discussion thread. We'll also have a virtual exhibit hall. And so anybody who is an exhibitor or a vendor can have their own booth in the exhibit hall. They can have a video that tells you about them. They can offer different giveaways or post pictures or flyers, and they can have somebody staff their booth. So that at any of the breaks at convention, you could stop by their booth and engage in chat with people and ask them questions about their ministry or their booth. So if everything that I've just covered is listed in this in this step-by-step guide to using our event app. So it walks you through everything about downloading the event, including what it would look like on a mobile screen or what it will look like on a desktop screen. So that should answer any of your questions, but of course, you can always email me or just email diocese@iowaepiscopal.org with questions. And I think that is it for me. And if you have questions right now, you can drop them in the chat for me. So I think I can cover what John was going to cover too. He was going to remind you all that visitors do need to register. Our original mailing had thought people could just pop in, but in order to get everybody access to the app, visitors do need to register. It will be important that every delegate has their own device. So if you have 2 delegates in the same household, you can watch everything on the same screen, but one of you at least would need to be able to have a phone or another device to be able to vote on so that every delegate can have their vote counted. If that's going to be a problem for any of your churches, if there are folks for whom access is going to be an issue, either internet connectivity or device, access to a device, we are hoping every church could be that first troubleshooting spot for us. Either arranging to borrow things, arranging for that delegate to have access to a room that they could be by themselves at church, to use church's Wi-Fi. But we're hoping that at least churches can help figure that out. If you get to a point that you absolutely can't figure out how to get your delegate access, do be in touch, because that's one of the most important things for us as we enter in this convention, making sure that nobody loses access to their ability to participate fully. And he was also going to remind you to budget for 2 in-person conventions in 2021. We'll have an electing convention in the spring and our regular convention in the fall. And so as you start to plan your church budget for next year, do remember that your delegates are going to have to go to 2 conventions in 2021. And John, I'm hoping if I forgot anything, nominations and resolutions probably. Deadlines for those are approaching. Do you have your mic back, John? You look unmuted.
Maybe.
Okay.
You can hear me? Oh, a miracle. Yes, and we're approaching some deadlines. Need to register and certify your delegates and just by September 15th, so we're not too far away. Clerks and either the cleric or senior warden, person in charge, have already gotten an email that had the instructions for that. So the under the convention tab will be all the registration things. Yeah, nominations are due on October 15th, and it's a quick turnaround because we have to get those out right away. And those forms are online, and one thing it doesn't say on the form is we need a picture. So if you could include a picture on that. Vestries or organizations within the diocese can nominate people. And those will all be elected at convention. We got the standing committee and our board of directors and the disciplinary board. Resolutions are due, and we have to have those 40 days prior to convention to the secretary. And that'll be really important this year. With the virtual convention, you're not going to be able to run up to the podium with a napkin with some scribbled resolution proposal. So do encourage any resolutions to come early to convention and to submit those to the resolutions committee. And really looking forward to it. Should be rather orderly, actually, barring sound issues and things like that. We'll have, be rather similar. In fact, you have to raise your hand and ask to address convention, and then you'll be given the mic and be able to, talk to the convention. So in that respect, it'll be very similar, and we're hoping to keep it interested and rolling right along. So, and it's only $10 per delegate, and seminarians are free, and visitors are free, although everyone needs to register. You do need to register to attend. So, and then, Meg mentioned this, but everyone needs to have their own email address and device to be able to vote in that manner. And many of your churches that have connectivity, hope you can act as hosts for people who need it, who don't have a good internet or Wi-Fi at their home. And again, if there's any questions, myself and Elizabeth Adams at the diocese, E. Adams at Iowa Episcopal, or diocese at Iowa Episcopal, would love to answer any questions and help you.
I think, John, there are a couple in the chat that we might want to speak to right now. Are there accommodations? We need to look at accommodations for people who might have some disabilities that are trying to attend this way. And we will check up as staff and pay attention to that. And then Wendy wrote, we can't submit resolutions from the floor. Question?
I can start with the first one. The closed captioning is going to be available for all of the plenary sessions. We haven't yet visited about whether that should be available for the hearings as well, but right now it is definitely planned for all of the plenary sessions. So closed captioning will be available. And John, I'll let you take the resolutions one.
Unless we amend the rules of convention, which will be brought up rather early in convention, the rules will apply as the convention has to grant a right for somebody to change the rules, because otherwise all resolutions do have to actually come to convention before convention. We've voted, passed to allow resolutions or despite not having been brought in a timely manner, but rules actually specify convention has to allow that through a vote. Otherwise, resolutions would not be allowed to come to the floor unless they're allowed, unless they're brought to convention earlier.
Okay. Elaine asked, I also asked if, if we list what resolutions. I'm not so sure that means. Why don't you guys, I don't know, that can't be answered probably in your small groups. Can I open the mic?
I'm not sure I understood your question, or the question entirely, except let's give Elaine the ability to speak so she can speak to it. What she's asking. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I am chair of the resolutions committee, and Elaine Kalbeck from Bettendorf, and the resolutions can be about sort of political topic sorts of things within the church, but they also are often memorials. So if there have been clergy who have died or have served well, or there are a number of those kind of things, and often they come up at the very last minute. And I would appreciate if people could at least send me a list of who they think we ought to have a resolution, and then I can work on finding someone to write that if the person who remembers the name doesn't know. So that would be a help to me. That's all I need.
Yeah, thank you. That's much clearer. Thanks. All right.
I know that Kathleen wants to just talk a little bit about the resolutions.
Oh, so just a minute. We have to unmute her.
Yes, last year, as some of you may remember, the late resolutions proved to be a real headache. And there it will be coming a proposal from the Constitution and Canons Committee to amend the rules of order to essentially make it much more difficult to come up with a late resolution. Not impossible, but more difficult. And if you have resolutions that you're thinking about, please don't wait till the last minute. If you really are thinking that there's something you need to move on, do it. And because we just grind to a halt almost with resolutions if we do that. And the vote on that will not change the rules for this convention, but the vote will be taken immediately as a part of the rules, as a part of the report from the Dispatch of Business Committee, which comes early. And so it will certainly affect proceedings going forward. The other thing, while I have the floor, is just a question, John. Is the deadline for nominations really the 15th of October? I thought it was September as well. Can't hear him, so.
John,
You're muted, John.
John, you were muted.
Yeah, it is September 15th. It's the same. So thank you, Kathleen.
And John, was I right? September 14 is the 40 days?
Yeah, 40. Yeah, 40 days. Yeah. Yeah, and that's to have the bio and that form completely filled out. That was very helpful. And like I say, submit a picture so we can get that out to all the delegates so they can have a chance to review it before convention.
Anne, I'm hoping you're ready because we're ready to move to your presentation on the budget. We've allowed about 20 minutes for this. And again, if you have questions that you need to talk about in your small group, please make a note of that for yourself. So Anne, I believe it's your turn.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes, I like that. Before I get started on the budget, I do want to put in a little plug here for the Stewardship Share Jubilee that was announced this spring. I think it was announced back in April. This has been a work of the Ways and Means Committee and the Board of Directors to offer some pandemic relief to congregations. And we've only had 6 congregations apply for it. So I wanted to make sure you all knew what it was and that it is still available. And in order to, what it is it's 3 months of forgiveness of 50% of your pledge, of your stewardship share pledge to the Diocese of Iowa. 3 months at 50%. So it's 50% of your pledge for up to 3 months. And to receive this relief, you simply need to write a letter or an email and send it to Bishop Scarf and me, and it's pretty automatic. And as I said, we've only had 6 congregations apply for it so far. If your congregation needs it, I encourage you to apply for it. And you really have until September 30th to do this. So I encourage you, if you're going to do it soon, because it's up to 3 months. So it's not that you wouldn't get it for the last part of the year. It's just that if you don't apply till October, you're not going to get the full 3 months because it is for the year 2020, budget year of 2020. Okay, I'm going to turn to the budget now, and I am going to share my screen and put up a copy of the budget. If you haven't seen it yet, it is available on the diocesan website. If you go to resources and then diocesan budget, you'll see as a downloadable 2021 draft version. I want to emphasize that this is a draft version that is for discussion purposes, that this is not the version that will be going to convention. There will be changes to this budget based on our discussions today at the chapter meetings. We'll take into consideration comments that we hear today, as well as some other changes between now. This has been a very challenging budget. I want to tell you, it's been a very challenging budget year for 2020, and it's very challenging to try to figure out what 2021 is going to look like. But Ways and Means and the board have taken the best stab that we know how to do at this point, and this is what it looks like right now, is that we have projected a budget of $1,160,950. Of that, 68% would be stewardship share. Stewardship share is the support every congregation provides to the Diocese of Iowa for our common ministry together. Line 3, the Stewardship Share Jubilee Fund carryover from 2020, that is the fund I was just talking about, that Ways and Means and the board established for 2020. And it's been so underused that we anticipate being able to carry some of those funds over into 2021. We're not sure yet what all that's going to look like, but we wanted to acknowledge it here in this budget. I'm going to pause for just a second and say if there's other Ways and Means members that have comments that you want to make along the way, I'd encourage you to unmute yourselves and do so. I'm going to move rather quickly. Gifts and other income are other sources of income that are sent directly to the diocese. There's gifts. There's also some trust money that we receive that shows up in here. Lines 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10 are investment money. And you'll see in the graph that investment makes up about 25% of our budget. Stewardship share makes about 68%. And the investment income makes about 25%. For 2021, Ways and Means is proposing that we are reducing our draw from our investments from the 5% that we have been doing down to 4.8 in 2021. So again, it's a sign of a little bit of caution of not knowing what 2021 is going to hold and being a little more prudent. So that's what's here. So that's the income side of the 2021 budget. If we look down below, you'll see the expenses are the major categories of ministry and mission is the largest section at 43%. The episcopate is 27% of the budget, and diocesan is 2%, and administrative and operating is 27%. Ministry and mission, the largest section of the expense budget, is what we do together as congregations that make up the Diocese of Iowa. It includes our support for the wider church, support for One World, One Church, support for young adult ministry, for young children and youth ministry, the multicultural work that we do, justice care, peace, care of creation, and congregational and clergy support are the sections that make up. There are salaries included in this. The personnel that are part of whose major focus is included in that section of the budget. So you'll see salaries listed under children and youth. You'll see salaries listed under multicultural, as well as the congregational and clergy support. That makes up, what did I say, 43% of our budget. You'll see in the little graph here a further breakout. The episcopate is what we pay, is what we do to support the fact that we have a bishop and the things that we need to do because we have a bishop. So it's the bishop's salary, it is his executive assistant, it is travel for him, it is the Commission on Ministry sits here. It is reserve funds for Lambeth, for the Episcopate election, and staff, conferences, and continuing education. That's what makes up the Episcopate section. The diocesan section is the things that we must do because we're a diocese. We must have an annual convention. We are required to publish an annual journal and report booklet. We send our deputies to General Convention. And we have governance. We have a board, we have a standing committee, and other committees that help with the governance. And that's what makes up this diocesan section. The last section is administrative and operating, and it is made up of those of 4 different salary positions, as well as the office expenses and expense of the diocesan house, unemployment insurance that we'll be doing for the first time in 2021, employer payroll taxes, diocesan house maintenance audit, and property and casualty insurance. So that's what makes up our budget, which again is $1,160,950. Just as the last graph, information graph that's here, of this budget, 59% is personnel. And the expenses that are included here are salary and housing if they're clergy, health insurance, life insurance, and pension. So I would encourage, if Ways and Means members have to cover anything that I might have missed, if there's any questions, to encourage you to put those into the chat box, and we'll see what we can do here in the time that we have. I'm going to stop the share and go back to, okay.
And do you see Nicola's question in the chat?
I do see it. She's asking if the estimated amounts for contributions from each congregation are available now. No, they're not, but I do intend to get them in congregations' hands prior to convention. It's a little preliminary now. We'll work on getting the budget finalized. The next step of this is Ways and Means will take another look at this budget. We will be getting the 2021 rates for health insurance, be able to adjust those numbers to a more actual number. Any other comments, concerns, questions you have today, we want to hear them, and so that we can hopefully put together the estimate for congregations and get those in your hand prior to convention.
This is Bill Smith, and just to flesh out the procedure, your comments today or over the next 2 or 3 weeks will be processed by Ways and Means Committee and reviewed, and then submitted to the Board of Directors with a recommendation for the budget that you will see at convention.
Thank you, Anne, very much. We all appreciate the work that's put into that from you and the Ways and Means.
You're welcome. And I would ask that if you discuss this further in your breakout rooms by chapter, that you do submit your notes so that we can capture your comments about this budget. If you have questions that occur to you, please reach out to me or any member of the Ways and Means Committee or your board rep, and have them send them to us so that we can interact with them.
To move right along, Jeannie.
I see that the auditors are at work with you, Anne.
Pardon?
I see that the auditors are working hard behind you.
Sorry, I have an active household with all my grandchildren running around behind me.
We're going to move along. Jeannie Smith is going to give us a brief update on the Bishops Nominating and Search Committee. I hope I got the letters in the right order and what's been going on with that. So Jeannie, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me all right. I am here speaking on behalf of Kevin Sanders, who is the chair of the Bishop Search and Nominating Committee. Kevin is unfortunately unavailable today. He's driving across the prairie and on his way to Colorado, so that's why he's not with us today. However, there are, I think, 10 of the 15 members of the search committee are here on this call today. So if I misstate anything, please let me know. We are 15 members. We have been meeting, I would say, religiously every Monday night since we had an opening retreat, which I believe was on March 8th, and that was the last in-person thing any of us did. So we have been meeting virtually by Zoom every Monday night. And in terms of where we are in this process, you all know that we had 2 months, maybe more, of listening sessions where we tried to speak to every congregation in our diocese and make sure that we got information from all of you about your hopes and dreams, about what we do well, what we don't do well. And we had those available via Zoom session, via individual conversations with any member of our committee, also via a questionnaire that was available online. We ended up getting about 360 responses to those questions. And from those, we have drafted a diocesan profile. We are almost done with the words of the diocesan profile. We got some great quotes to go with it. We are choosing pictures to go with it. And now the diocesan profile is in the final stages of being put together. It will be put together as a portion of the diocesan website. So it will be an online profile divided into discernible sections so people could skip around in the various sections. And we anticipate having our draft to the standing committee sometime in September, probably earlier September rather than later September, but we'll see. We think we're on target for everything we need to do. And then once the standing committee approves the profile, it'll go out to, and we will hopefully get a lot of people who are interested in becoming the 10th Bishop of Iowa. So anything else, any questions you'd like to ask? I'll just give a shout out here to who's here on this today. In addition to me, Deb Lexell is here, Stewart, Bonnie Wilkerson, Steve Halstead, Andrew Peterson, Paula Sanchini, Fred Steinbach, Holly Scherf, John Horn. I saw all those names. Maybe there are more, but those are 10 of the 15 members of this committee. So great thanks to all of them, and certainly to Kevin Sanders, who has been just remarkably wonderful at guiding us along.
Well, thanks to you all and to the team for making do with the circumstances that you got thrown into. So thank you for that. Amy, are you ready to do a little brief just update on the online trainings?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm just going to take a few minutes here just to fill you in on training sessions that are online and available for you to do. First, I want to say that we do have some new safeguarding policies that will be coming to you, hopefully in the near future. We've been working on these since February. These were handed down at the 2018 General Convention, and so we have a group of 4 or 5 of us who have been working on them since February, and hopefully we'll get those ready to adopt here by the end of the year. But with that in mind, please, 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 administrators, check in with your vestry members to make sure that they have completed the training that needs to be done. It's all available online. If you have questions regarding how to set somebody up, I'm certainly able to help with that. Presidium does have training sessions for administrators September 1st, October 13th, and then a couple of advanced trainings on September 15th and September 29th. So if you're an administrator or if you don't know who your administrator is, you can contact me and I can let you know about that. Some of the other trainings that we have coming up are the Dismantling Racism trainings. November 21st, December 12th, and it looks like January 16th are the available dates. So if you haven't done that, please register for that. And I also just wanted to let everybody know that we do have some suicide prevention resources that we've just uploaded to Iowa Share. So if you get into iowashare.org, and if you search for either mental health or suicide prevention resources, those will pop up as well. So that is all from me.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Tracy, we need a little update on Gilead.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Rulin Petty. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Administrative Missioner for Growing Iowa Leaders and Engaging All Disciples. So just a quick refresher, although many of you are familiar with this, in case you're not, Gilead is a 3-year fundraising campaign for the diocese that makes more resources available to congregations across the state and to our global companions. So there are a couple of pieces of this, and there are, when someone makes a gift to the campaign, they can designate a percentage of that gift to go to a particular congregation, and those checks are mailed out to those congregations quarterly. So if you've been receiving those, I'd actually invite you to type into the chat if you'd like to share what you've been spending that money on. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is the Gilead grants that are being made available. We just got finished with our open application period this year. I'm not able to share with you just quite yet what those projects are. Decisions are still being made as to who will be funded, but I will have some great announcements for you at convention to let you know the projects and ideas that are coming out from across the diocese. And I have to say, it's been a privilege to be able to be a part of that process, seeing the ideas and just folks jumping in and really listening to where the Spirit might be moving them in this time has been wonderful to be a part of. So that'll be really exciting when we get to announce those at convention. Since this is a 3-year campaign, it's not too late to get pledges in. You can continue to do that. So that's still in process, and those monies go toward the grant fund that's available. And so these next 2 years are going to have a very similar process. You'll be able to submit applications between May 15th and July 15th next year and the year after. But in this kind of off season, when applications aren't open, you'll still be able to see the questions that are on the applications on our website, so you can prepare your grant ahead of time. And myself and the grant review committee are here in this off season to help you prepare your application. So if you have an idea and maybe you're not quite sure if it's not fully formed and you want some advice, or if you're looking at the questions and maybe you can't see how a particular question relates to your idea, we can help you through that. This whole process is really designed to be pretty transparent, and it gives you an opportunity to advocate for yourself and your idea, the project that you're thinking of. And yeah, it's just really different from other grants where there's not much conversation that happens. This one, the grant review committee meets with you right before you submit and after you submit an application. So there's conversation that goes back and forth. They can give you advice on what to include to help strengthen your application. And so just really encourage everyone, if you've got an idea, to reach out. I can get those meetings set up for you. And I'm here if you have any questions. You're also welcome to submit questions into the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on that. And I think I don't see anything in particular, so that is it for me.
Good. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for keeping track of all that. We've come to the end of the general presentations. Meg is going to give you a bit of instructions on rooms. Hopefully, we asked for chapters when you registered, so we're hoping that everybody goes to the right room. And I'm sure that Meg will tell you what will happen if you get in an incorrect chapter room. So, Meg.
Yeah. So only about half of you, it looks like, maybe registered with the same email that you use for Zoom. So not everybody's going to go directly. It's going to take me a little bit. While I am trying to sort some folks, Ellen, would you talk a little bit about how the breakouts work and what you're hoping they cover while I'm doing this?
Sure, thank you. Breakouts, this is the first time we've tried this, of course, because it's the first time we've done chapter meetings online. But we wanted to give you a chance to meet just with your chapter and talk about chapter things. We've suggested an agenda to the conveners if you have one. But just to check in, how's it going in your chapter? What's been going on with you all with maybe the reopening, maybe the storm, whatever, but just check in with each other and keep those relationships building. You need to set your dates for 2021. And remember, we usually have a chapter meeting in the spring and in the fall. So that needs to be done in your meeting. If you do not have a convener, or if your convener is ready to move on, you need to make sure that there is a convener for you. And then some of you have board reps that you will need to be electing or nominating, excuse me. Central chapter, Metro chapter, Southwest chapter, and Three Rivers. And I'm assuming, I'm hoping that the conveners know about that. So you chapters, you four need to nominate some people for the board of directors. There are 2 at-large seats for the board of directors for the class of 2023, and those will be filled at convention. And then we don't have anything else that we are suggesting. When you're finished with your business, it is our intention that you just leave. We're not coming back together as a large group. So take as much time as you want. The rooms will be open. You don't have to leave right away, but when you're finished with your business, you're finished. Please make sure you have a note taker. We need the information, like on the dates, we need the ways and means information. Please make sure that someone in your group is taking notes, and then get them to us. You can get them to your chapter liaison or to Meg, whoever you remember to get them to. Are there questions? Anybody have, well, you can't unmute yourself. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat room before we send you away.
So I just have one little thing. It just happened to come on my phone from Bishop Alina from Eswatini, from Diocese Swaziland. I've read your weekly communique. Following from that, I want to let you know that we have already been praying for you and all Iowans in relation to the storm that you have recently experienced. These kinds of tragedies are sad, indeed, especially at this difficult time of COVID. And we pray that God comfort the people of Iowa and provide for them abundantly. So I just want to pass that on while we have that opportunity. I let her know that we were all gathering in a joint chapter meeting. And so she said, may God be with us as we deliberate. So just want to pass that on.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ellen.
There's a question from about the Transition Steering Committee. And Elizabeth says they'll have their training retreat. You can see it in the chat on August 29th. But there still are places if you are wanting to serve on that, if you think your skills would be important on those groups, check with Standing Committee at iowaepiscopal.org. Question about changing the rules to allow publishing convention documents digitally instead of hard copy. And that will come up at convention. Oh, okay. Dismantling racism in the chat. Amy, do you still have those in front of you? Or Meg?
Yes, I do. I'm putting them in right now.
Okay, thanks. Idea of all the chapter meetings in the fall and hope this will continue. So does that mean you like this way of meeting as a chapter together? It is kind of different, isn't it? It's nice to see so many people. So let's see if we're doing on breakouts.
I am working on it. I can send everybody and then I can sort everyone else. So just give us a few minutes to get everybody in your room that's supposed to be there. It's a little hard. So if you don't use the same email that you use for Zoom, Zoom doesn't know to recognize the breakouts. And if you only have your first name on here, I might not know which Sharon is which, right? Or which, right. Yeah. So we're gonna see how this goes. And I'm going to read through the list, and then Julianne's going to tell me which room you belong in with everybody who's left. All right.
We will make a recording of this meeting available afterwards.
We could probably
ma'am.
stop recording now since we're just